Hey guys, we are back updating the power rankings for the Circle Season 6 following week 2, and I feel like this was a better week of the show compared to week 1, as it becomes pretty apparent that these people are here to play, and there is a decent amount of gameplay happening, at least by the Circle standards. We'll get to that soon enough, but there are 11 players to talk about, and let's waste any more time. Let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 11, we have the first person that was blocked, and here we have Steffi, and I did say that I thought she was going to stay over Paul, but to be honest, she was still pretty low in the rankings last week, as I feel like even if she had survived, she probably would have just continued to be on the bottom, not really being much of a factor within the game, not to mention that she couldn't convince people that she was an AI, which is pretty funny. So again, bit of a shame to lose Steffi this early, but she is now out of the game to where she's here at number 11. Now moving on to number 10, and we have the next person to leave the game, and here we have Max, who was a 1-week twist on the season. And for the most part, I'm fine with Max leaving here, considering I felt like his whole shtick would have gotten old pretty quickly. Though at the same time, it is annoying that they have these players that are just here for one round, only to leave the game, which obviously doesn't help with my view of how games like this should be played. But again, he was fine enough, and it was kind of cool seeing him at least survive this initial round. But obviously, he is now also out of the game to where he's here number 10. Now moving on to number 9, and we have the final boot from this week, and here we have Cassie. And I was pretty low on Cassie last week. I feel like she was relatively underdeveloped compared to the people that weren't in immediate danger. But I feel like it was pretty clear she was going home by the end of it, considering her whole plan was to prop up Kyle in the ratings while tanking Olivia to prop up her own ranking, only for her to be last in the rating there while Kyle becomes an influencer, and by that point she was pretty clearly toast. Now, beyond that, I feel like she was probably not a super likely winner and someone who I wasn't looking that highly on, but it was still fun seeing her try to play the game only for it to backfire. But she is now out of the game to where she's here at number 9. And with that, there are 8 players left in the game to talk about, and as usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they are to win the game based on their edit and current game position. And just like last week, this batch of episodes ended on a cliffhanger right before an eviction, and then a spot to where we could see a double boot in the first 5 minutes of this next episode. So obviously that makes things a bit difficult to rank. But obviously the bottom 2 will be the people in immediate danger. And at number 8, I do have Caress, also known as Paul, who is in a pretty similar spot to where she was last week, considering she was also in danger last week. But now she's in danger this week, and I do think she'll probably go home at the beginning of next week, considering she still doesn't seem to be in that good of a spot to where she was 5th place in the ratings that happened here, and obviously is now in the bottom 2 once again. And considering that I feel like Kyle has been getting more positive content recently, I feel like she's a bit less likely to stay over Kyle, which is why she's here at number 8. Now moving on to number 7, and we have the other person in immediate danger, and here we have Kyle. Now, if it wasn't for this twist and Kyle being in danger, I would actually have him higher, considering that this was a good week for him, where he got to be first in the ratings here, he was an influencer, and he obviously had a hand in taking out Cassie. And beyond that, I feel like if Paul goes, that'll probably be a net positive for Kyle's game, considering Paul was previously targeting him. And I feel like with him having these stronger relationships with people like Autumn and QT, I do feel like if he survives this round, he could be in an interesting spot moving forward. And I feel like he's been getting pretty positive content on the show for the most part. But again, there's still the risk of him going home, which is why he's here number 7. Now moving on to number 6, and we are finally at someone who was not either evicted or was in immediate danger. But number 6, the least likely of these people to actually win the game from this point on is Autumn, who is one of the later entries here, entered the game this week. And I mean, she's just kind of there on the show. I feel like compared to Jordan, she's been getting a much smaller edit, and she doesn't seem to be in that good of a gain spot, where outside of her relationship with Kyle, I feel like she hasn't really gotten much there. And I feel like she's largely just being used as a number, where it doesn't seem like she's well positioned there. We saw it during the game that happened recently that people were very willing to throw her under the bus there to hide their own allegiances there. So I feel like that's not a particularly good sign there. And I feel like with her edit not being particularly positive either, I feel like I had to put her at the bottom of the people still in the game to where she's here at number 6. Now moving on to number 5, and we actually have the other later entry into the game, and here we have Jordan, also known as Big J. And I'm kind of conflicted over Jordan here in the sense that he obviously comes off as this pretty strategic player, someone who talks about coming to the game and wanting to just hide his strategy and while playing a very strategic game. But at the same time, I feel like we haven't really seen him have a ton of success so far. Where we get to his conversation with Kyle, where he talks about how he feels like Kyle will be easy to manipulate, only for Kyle to feel pretty sus about him and for him to feel like he doesn't get much out of it, which isn't particularly great. You also have him wanting to target Miles by talking to Olivia, which feels pretty strange and obviously doesn't go through considering Olivia is Miles's partner during the twist. And in general, I feel like Jordan feels like he fits this archetype of players we've seen it before, of these hyper strategic players that can possibly get to the end of the game, but very rarely do well in the final rating, to where I could see him being like last place in the final ratings if he gets to the end, which doesn't look particularly well for him, which is why he's here at number 5. Now moving on to number 4, and I could see a case for this person being higher, but I feel like at this point in the season, I'm just not feeling great about their overall chances, and here we have Brandon, also known as Olivia, and I don't know, I feel like Olivia very much fits this mold of this pretty genuine person that like is a fan favorite, something that gets towards the end, but kind of comes up short by the end of it. I also feel like from a pure gain standpoint, he hasn't really been in that good of a spot either, where he got 6 in the latest rating, which is second to last. You also have Lauren rating him last as well, despite him seeing her as his closest ally. You also have him coming off as this pretty genuine player, someone that feels very openly like turned off by the idea of playing the game and being cutthroat, which obviously for the circle isn't that bad, but still, like, considering how strategic this cast has been up to this point, I feel like it's more so set up to show him being like a likable presence more so than a competent player. And even beyond that, I feel like he's someone who's just a bit overexposed in the edit at this point, and I feel like I can't really see him winning the game per se, but you never know. It's a circle. The circle's kind of hard to predict anyway, edit wise. But I feel like at this point, I'm just not feeling as good about Brandon as I do about the other people, which is why he's here at number 4. Now moving on to number 3, and I was pretty conflicted over what to do with this person, as this person has been getting more negativity in their edit, but I feel like they're still playing a relatively solid game, and here we have Lauren. And I wasn't entirely sure what to do with Lauren either, as we are getting more talk this week about people not trusting Lauren, how they see her as two-faced, and how she betrayed Cassie, and all that's not particularly great. But at the same time, she still has been doing pretty well in the ratings, to where she wasn't in the bottom 2 during this latest round, during the Tide Destinies twist. And she also came in 3rd place during the episode 6 rating. So again, she's still doing alright game position wise. And even outside of that, I feel like she hasn't been as undermined as she could be, where during the game, like, they said that Lauren was the least likely person to backstab someone. So again, I feel like there's enough there. I feel like there's a chance that Lauren could slip her way to the end of the game. It's just a question over whether they're going to reward her well on the final rating or if they're going to tank her. But for now, I do have her here number 3. Now moving on to number 2, and we have someone kind of similar to Lauren, but I feel like this person has been propped up a little bit more in the edit. And here we have Miles. Now, we have gotten some bad things about Miles this week as well, namely with Cassie wanting to target him. You also have Jordan wanting to target him as well. But I think it's also pretty apparent that Miles is also in a pretty good spot within the game, where at this point he has a bit of a showman with QT, and we even have Jordan at one point being exasperated over the fact that people want to work with Miles. And yes, while there are still people like Olivia that wants to target him as well, again, he's still doing pretty well in the ratings. He got 4th place in the episode 6 rating, and he also wasn't in the bottom 2 during the episode 8 rating. And I feel like if he is able to keep Kyle in the game after this round, I feel like that'll put him in a pretty dominant spot to get towards the end of the game. Now, I think the question at that point is whether he can win, as obviously I think it'll be between him and QT. And I think there's a world where he could be set up for a win as well. So I feel like the game position is there. I think also edit-wise, he's been getting decent content. Like, he's been getting a chance to talk about his family and his personal background. So I do feel like the edit is there for a Miles win. But again, you never quite know with the circle. But at this point, I do have him here at number 2. And now, at number 1, the person I believe is the most likely to win the Circle Season 6 right now is QT. And I feel like this week really showed QT's position in the game, and she's in a very solid position right now. I feel like she's in a very powerful position, actually, where she has the likes of Miles, she has Kyle, she has plenty of people that are willing to go to bat for her. She also got 2nd place in the episode 6 rating, and while she was thrown under the bus by Cassie on their way out, and we have people like Jordan wanting to target her, I don't feel like she's gotten as much negativity as she probably could have. To where even though Jordan wants to target her, I feel like Jordan has been undermined enough to where I could see QT winning that battle. I feel like she's in a good spot, especially if Kyle ends up staying, and I feel like that'll set her up pretty well coming to the end game here. And I feel like compared to Miles, I could see a world where she could sneak out a win here, where she hasn't been as overexposed compared to Miles, despite her being in a pretty prominent spot. So I feel like those things make me feel pretty good about QT coming into it. Now, yes, it's still the circle, and you can never truly know with how they're editing the season, but I feel like QT is probably the person I feel the most confident in at the moment, which is why she's here at number 1. And there we go, that'll do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, really help with the channel. I'll be back again next week to update the power rankings again, so you can look forward to that. I'm covering other shows right now, including Survivor 46, The Amazing Race 36, and Big Brother Canada 12, so you can expect weekly power rankings of those shows. I'm on Patreon, so if you want to consider supporting the channel, you can do so by clicking the link in the description, and you can also join the Discord server by also clicking the link in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way, but for now, that is the video. See ya.